All right, coaches, you ready for this? Today's deep dive is for all you high jump coaches out there.
We're going right to the source today.
Oh yeah, we're talking Wolfgang Ritzdorf.
Director of the IAF World High Jump Center.
Big name. And his article, Approaches to Technique and Technical Training in the High Jump. So you know there's going to be some serious gold in here, stuff you can actually use.
Absolutely. Practical takeaways you can take straight to the track with your athletes.
So Ritzdorf, he really hammers this point home about having a clear technical model, like crystal clear.
Yeah, and that kind of highlights something, every bit of feedback, every little thing you say to an athlete, it all comes back to that model.
Like a gold standard.
Exactly.
So when you're telling an athlete, hey, your approach is too slow, or that jump was way too deep, you're comparing what you see to that perfect picture in your head.
It's the benchmark.
But here's the thing, and Ritzdorf points this out, observing high jump, it's not exactly a walk in the park.
No, it's not, is it? Everything happens so fast.
Blink and you'll miss it.
And the difference between a good jump and a not so good jump, tiny.
Oh, super subtle.
Like trying to find a typo in a blur. Even for experienced coaches, it's a constant challenge.
Honing those observation skills.
See, and you got to remember, high jump, it's not like some other jumps.
Right.
It's got more room for variation.
Interesting.
Think about it. The approach, the curve, that takeoff moment, the angle, the rotations. There's so many places where an athlete might not fit the textbook, but they're still jumping high.
Which makes it even more important to understand the fundamentals, right? What actually matters versus like what just looks good.
Absolutely. Knowing the core of it all.
So how does Ritzdorf deal with this? He talks about two main strategies for developing technique. First one, he calls them key elements.
Yeah, the non-negotiables, the things that have to be right, no matter what an athlete's individual style is. He actually lists them out, and get this, half of them, they're all about the approach run.
So coaches, listen up.
The approach matters. Big time.
Don't skimp on it. No takeoff board like in long jump or triple jump to rely on.
Nope, the approach sets everything up.
And he gets super specific about the penultimate ground contact.
That's the second to last step before takeoff.
Right. And Ritzdorf, he's really zeroed in on the body position there.
Especially that shin angle. It's crucial for setting up a powerful takeoff.
So if that shin angle's off, even just a little,
the whole jump's thrown off.
Makes sense. You need the right angle to generate force and direction. Okay, so that's strategy one, nailing those key elements. What about number two?
This is where it gets really interesting. Ritzdorf, he shifts gears. From technique itself to the athlete's physical capacity.
Okay.
Specifically something called reactive strength.
Reactive strength, huh? Sounds intense.
It is. Think the ability to absorb force and then boom, explode back. Like picture a kangaroo hopping, that's reactive strength. Ritzdorf says this is the toughest physical quality to change in an athlete.
So why is it so important for high jump technique?
Well, because he thinks reactive strength, it actually determines an athlete's ideal takeoff time.
Interesting.
So if you try to force a technique that doesn't match their natural reactive strength, you're basically fighting their body.
Like trying to jam a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah, exactly. So first, you got to understand the athlete's physical capacity, then you figure out the technique.
So you don't start with the technique?
Not exactly, no. And this ideal takeoff time, the one that comes from reactive strength, well, it kind of kicks off a chain reaction.
How so?
It affects their approach speed, how they prepare for that takeoff.
It's all connected.
Everything's linked.
All right, so we've got those two big strategies. Key elements, reactive strength. But how do you put this into practice? How do you actually train for this stuff?
Well, that's where Ritzdorf's 4 elements of technical preparation come in. First one's all about developing what he calls general qualities.
General qualities.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty general.
Think of it as the foundation. A solid athletic base. He's big on good running technique. Makes sense, right? High jump starts with a run. So being able to run well, super important. He actually says to dedicate a lot of training time just to developing that.
Makes sense. What else is part of these general qualities?
He's also a big believer in overall strength and power development, but with a focus on the core.
Core strength.
And hip stability. Super important for high jumpers.
So building that strong core, classic athletic foundation. But it sounds like he's saying that strength and power training, it all ties back to that reactive strength we talked about before.
Exactly. It's not about being strong just for the sake of it. It's got to translate into that explosive power high jumpers need, that rebound.
This is awesome. So how does Ritzdorf take us beyond this foundation? What's next?
That brings us to the second element, developing specific qualities.
Specific qualities. Okay, now we're getting more targeted, right?
Exactly. And remember, reactive strength, well, he really digs into it here. He says developing those pathways in your nervous system that let you make quick and powerful contact with the ground, that's crucial for high jumpers.
So how do you train for that? Lots and lots of plyometrics.
He likes basic jumping drills, but the key is variation.
So you're not just doing the same thing over and over.
Nope. Got to challenge the system.
Got it.
This helps improve how quickly and powerfully athletes react. It fine-tunes that reactive strength.
Making those connections in your brain faster, more efficient.
Exactly.
I love it. So where do we go from here? What's the next piece of the puzzle?
Element number 3, developing specific skills.
Okay, now this is where we really get into the high jump itself, right?
Yep, this is all about the technical elements of the jump.
Things like arm action, how you drive off that lead leg, hip acceleration, even that transition in the penultimate step we talked about.
All of that.
So you're breaking the jump down piece by piece, working on each part specifically.
You got it. But here's the thing. Ritzdorf, he actually recommends working on these skills with drills away from the crossbar.
Wait, away from the crossbar? Why would you do that?
It seems counterintuitive, I know, but he says it lets athletes get more reps in. They can really master those individual skills before they put it all together in a full jump.
Interesting. So it's like mastering the individual brushstrokes before you paint the whole picture.
Yeah, exactly. You're building that technical foundation one brush stroke at a time.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've covered general qualities, and specific skills. What's the last element?
Last but not least, element number 4, technical training. This is where it all comes together. The athlete is actually doing high jumps.
The main event. What does Ritzdorf say about this part?
Well, he's actually pretty conservative here.
Conservative? How so?
He suggests a maximum of 2 technical training sessions a week, with only 10 to 15 jumps in each session. And here's the kicker, he really limits short approach jumps.
Really? But those seem like they'd be helpful. Wouldn't they help athletes refine their technique?
It seems that way, but Ritzdorf, he's observed something. Too many short approach jumps, they can actually lead to some bad habits.
What do you mean?
Think about it. A short approach, it doesn't need the same kind of power and speed as a full approach.
Right.
So athletes, they might adjust their technique without even realizing it.
So they're not training their bodies to do the jump with the same power and efficiency?
Exactly. It's like practicing free throws from half court. You might get good at it, but it won't help you in a game.
So it's like they're developing bad habits by doing too many short approach jumps.
Yeah, kinda. He's not saying to get rid of them completely, just to use them strategically.
I see.
And to focus more on those specific drills that work on those individual elements.
So quality over quantity when it comes to short approach jumps.
Exactly. They gotta have a purpose, a specific reason for doing them.
I like that. Be intentional with your training.
Absolutely. Ritzdorf's approach is all about understanding why you're doing what you're doing.
It's not just following a program blindly.
Nope. It's about the principles behind it, adapting it to each athlete.
This is great stuff. Really makes you think. So Ritzdorf, he's all about building that strong foundation, those general and specific qualities, before you get into the technical parts of the high jump. But how does this all come together to actually help your athletes jump higher? Stay tuned.
Welcome back, coaches. Hope you're ready for more, because we're diving deeper into Ritzdorf's approach to high jump.
Yeah, I keep thinking about how much he focuses on understanding each individual athlete.
It's not one size fits all. He's all about embracing the uniqueness of each athlete. It's super important. Ritzdorf is challenging us to move beyond this idea of a single, perfect technique.
Right.
He knows there are lots of ways to be successful in high jump, and it's our job as coaches to find what works best for each athlete.
So it's about taking the time to really watch your athletes, see what they're good at, where they struggle, and then figure out what works for them.
Exactly. It's about being adaptable, not having a rigid plan. You tailor your coaching to their needs, their physical characteristics.
That's where those 2 strategies for technique development come in. Those key elements.
Your non-negotiables.
Right. That Ritzdorf thinks every successful high jumper needs. That's your foundation.
Think of them like the cornerstones of a house. They provide the structure, make sure the whole thing can handle the forces acting on it.
But then you also have to think about reactive strength, because that's going to affect how those key elements actually play out.
It's finding that balance between technique and the athlete's natural abilities.
Like a perfect harmony.
Imagine 2 athletes, they both have perfect technique, but one has way better reactive strength. That athlete is going to have a higher ceiling, more potential.
Right, because they're able to translate that technique into power.
Exactly. So you got to understand those fundamental building blocks, those athletic qualities, and how they influence technique.
Okay, and then on top of that, you add those 4 layers of technical preparation. Developing general qualities like running mechanics, strength, and power. Honing those specific qualities like reactive strength. Working on those specific skills like arm action, lead leg drive.
It's like building a pyramid.
I like that.
You start with this big base of general athleticism, and then you refine and focus those qualities and skills until you reach that peak performance in the high jump.
It's a process, step by step.
And remember, it's not just drilling technique over and over.
Right.
It's about developing those underlying athletic qualities
That create the potential.
for powerful, efficient high jumps. Welcome back, coaches. As we wrap this up, this deep dive into Ritzdorf's approach, I'm thinking about how his philosophy, it goes way beyond just the technical side of high jump.
Yeah, it really does, doesn't it? What's so cool about Ritzdorf is that it's a whole athlete approach, you know? He's not just talking about physical ability. It's about understanding their learning styles, what motivates them, their goals.
Seeing them as a whole person.
Exactly, not just a set of skills to improve or a body to train.
Right.
And that's where the art of coaching comes in, I think. It's not just about knowing the sport inside and out. It's about connecting with your athletes,
Building those relationships.
understanding where they're coming from, and figuring out how to inspire them, to push them to be their
It's
best.
creating that learning environment where they feel supported, but also challenged. Exactly. And where they feel like they can take charge of their own development.
And Ritzdorf really emphasizes that, being clear, giving specific feedback, and creating an environment where everyone can grow, both individually and as a team.
He talks about that a lot, yeah.
So it's not just about the jumps themselves, it's the culture you create as a coach.
It's about building that growth mindset.
Not just in your athletes, but in yourself too.
Absolutely. And honestly, I think that's important for all coaches, no matter the sport.
It's about the journey
Yeah.
and helping your athletes fall in love with the sport.
So bringing it all back around, how can you use all of this, all these insights from Ritzdorf, to help your athletes jump higher?
It starts with taking a look at how you're coaching right now. Are you focusing on those foundational qualities, the general and the specific?
Are you being smart about your technical training?
Yeah, how much are you doing and why?
Are you adapting your approach to each athlete?
Are you building that environment, the one that encourages growth and motivation, a love for the sport? Every coach should be asking themselves these questions
Always looking for ways to improve.
because, at the end of the day, coaching is about being a guide.
Helping your athletes be the best they can be.
And who knows, maybe you'll coach an Olympic champion one day.
That'd be awesome.
But even if you don't get to that level, what you do for your athletes, the impact you have, it matters.
Absolutely. It makes a difference.
So to all you high jump coaches out there, I really encourage you, dig into Ritzdorf's work.
Yeah, take a look.
There's so much valuable stuff in there, it can really help you take your coaching to the next level. That's all the time we have for today, but like we always say, the learning never stops. Keep those brains working, keep adapting those training programs, and keep pushing your athletes to new heights. Until next time, happy coaching.